beauty of God, perfect and holy light of God, to accept this way of being, this truth, is to step deeply into the final commitment, the final yes. And open to the realization of what you have always been. In the journey of healing, it isn't going to a new place. It isn't uncovering new truth and new awarenesses. It's returning to the truth that you have always been. It's returning to reality. You've been in the desert of illusion for all of these lifetimes, believing in its authenticity of scarcity and lack and differences and death. These are the principal beliefs that have run the world. A world that was made completely in illusion, completely in the belief of separation. And to live in the world of separation is to have to believe that you are a separate identity. You have to live a life of separation. To incarnate into a body testifies to the beliefs of limitation and separation. Every time you look down at the body, or you look in the mirror and see what you consider to be yourself, but what you're really seeing is a body, is to very deeply be confused because you're not able to see the light and the spirit that is really there. Not seeing it physically is just a step in the belief of being separate and being a body, in the belief of death. There's no connection to the divine spirit that is the Spirit of God, that is actually the truth of your existence. So the journey from the belief of being separate and destined to die, slowly in the spiritual journey, falls away and must fall away. And all the beliefs and all of the blocks that the ego self has put up to prove separation are one by one surrendered and let go. And in that way, in the journey of remembering, every time that there is a healing, there is a presumption of death because the ego is losing its grip. It's no longer believed in such an unconscious way, where you just accept the world and its battlegrounds. But now, in the spirit of the journey of love, you question your intentions. You question, what is it for? You question, who do I answer to? And what are my alliances and my allegiances? Who is my divine authority that I turn to in every step? And the deep, deep willingness to surrender the past and all that has been made of the past. That is the great leap of faith. Because as you surrender the past, you're surrendering everyone as you thought you knew that they were. You question and you bring to the light, you allow the light to illuminate all the concepts that you made in the past, letting the spirit of love shine the light on the false identities that you gave to everyone that you met. Everyone that you met in the past, everyone that you not only came in contact with, but that you had either fleeting relationships with or long-term relationships, now are brought to question. Who was that beloved that I called mother? Why was I not able to recognize this being as the spirit of love? And who was the beloved that I called and gave the role to of father? And all of the ways that I identified these two beings for what they did and for what they didn't do, and for their personalities, for their difficulties in their life, for their belief systems, and what beliefs did I take of theirs and adopt them as my own without question. But now, all of those beloveds from the past are being called to be brought to your awareness so that you can truly set them free. To set them free from the false identities that have been given to them. The willingness to bring them with you into the light of love. And you bring them with you by refusing to accept any longer the false identities that have been held of them. All the beloveds from the past. Your journey is to set them free. To set them free as you set yourself free into the hands of God. As you surrender each beloved from the past into the hands of God, willing to see them as the light of love, willing to forgive all the false identities that you gave to everyone, making an entire story and world out of each beloved's relationship with you. To finally set free all these beloveds that you believed restricted you and damaged or kept you without the feeling of being loved, blaming these beloveds because you thought they were to blame. But then the spirit of love comes to your heart and reveals to you that you are not a body. You never were this identity. The name that you carried for all of these years, and then the names that you carried from all past lifetimes and the identities that went with them, all of them were fabricated. All of them were taken as a belief of separation. All the blame that was put on the past for the perception of damage that you carry are now being called to be surrendered and let go. Truly surrendered into the hands of God and truly wanting the past to be healed. Not healed into a different story, but healed into complete evaporation except for the love. That all of the stories, all of the identities that were fabricated and held together as evidence of separation are now being called to be truly surrendered, to be transformed, so that you can truly remember and accept the wholeness with all creation. All of the relationships in the past have been about specialness, believing that each one was there to give you something. And of course, in the belief that you didn't get what you wanted, then there has to be resentment, and there has to be sorrow, and there has to be the blame of others, or what seem to be others. But God is calling, love is calling, to let go of all of the ideas of blame, to truly forgive each beloved, to no longer hold them hostage, having expectations for their lives or their circumstance, no longer willing to identify as an extension of another life, but rather to return to the wholeness of one heart, the willingness to return to the center of God, and to realize and accept that the light of God is within you, to come home to the friend that is within, and to bring all beloveds into that one heart, no longer willing to hold them hostage in their roles that they have been given. Every role that you gave to every beloved holds humanity in limitation and separation, because every beloved is using the same roles and the same limitations with every beloved. And it keeps affirming that everyone is separate, and that everyone is different, and that everyone has failed. Everyone that has been in the belief of separation, in the belief of being a body, has held the essence of failure as the center of your being. This is not consciously held, but unconsciously held. Unconsciously held to affirm the need to prove worth. How much energy does all of humanity use up trying to prove worth against each other? Because in the belief of scarcity, which is one of the central beliefs of separation. In the belief of scarcity, it has to be that everyone is trying to prove worth against all the others. The competition in the belief of separation is fierce. The competition of believing that you have to compete with everyone and everything to prove your worth. Trying to win, trying to undo your identity from the past, but only unconsciously wanting to undo it into a better identity, not realizing, unless you're walking the spiritual journey, that the journey is really the undoing of all identity, every one that you have given to everyone. In this moment, the willingness to see the beloveds that you have named as the mother and the father on this earth plane, the willingness to see them as innocent and holy as the light of God, that is the journey in this moment. To truly forgive your own mind from the identity that you gave to them. And the willingness to accept that you did give them an identity. And they played out the identity that you carried of believing that you did not have worth, that you were not whole and innocent. And you joined with them in that belief and saw it reflected in their eyes. None of it was true. Lifetime after lifetime, you've walked a journey that said, I am separate and I am without. But now, in this moment, in the calling into the spiritual journey, and all of you have entered into this spiritual journey this lifetime consciously. You have entered into the spiritual journey to remember and to release all of the misperceptions, all the blocks that you have made against love. No beloved that walks the spiritual journey has any idea, to begin with, what those blocks are. They just seem normal. All of the ideas of judgment and opinions and assessments, criticisms, fears, resentments, blame, all the ways of being afraid of others and judgments against who you think you are, not realizing that all of the judgments, all of the assessments, all of the blame is all coming from your own mind. And that's where the healing is. The surrender of the mind into the power of God. The willingness to surrender the mind and all thoughts that come in the everyday life that keep affirming, I am without. I am without love. I am without caring. I am without truth. And I am without honesty. None of this is true. None of it is true. And the journey of love is the journey of remembering and accepting that only love exists. There's no way possible that the mind that made separation can conceive, can accept that only love is real. To accept that you are the light of God, that you are whole and complete in the truth of God, not as a separate self, but as the heart of God. To accept that is to deny in that moment the mind, the brain that made up separation. And that choice is what the journey is all about. In the belief of separation that you walk through with all the beloveds that you gave roles to in this lifetime and every past lifetime, it was essential that you forgot that you had a choice. The belief of separation and the belief of roles and lifetimes as a body, as an identity, by its very nature affirms that you are without and that you have to prove your worth. But the truth of love keeps bringing you back to the awareness that there's nothing for you to prove, nothing at all. Just to honestly surrender the heart into the hands of God and to honestly refuse to believe the game of the ego mind and refuse to accept any longer the belief of being a body, being attached to a body identity that will never, ever, ever bring you to peace. The acceptance of peace, the acceptance of God into your heart will set your mind free as you surrender all beliefs and all thoughts into the hands of God. Moment by moment in the everyday life, choosing between peace and knowing. To choose peace is to be willing to surrender the blocks that have been made in the name of separation. To choose peace is to align with love and to refuse the turmoil of the past. This is a deep leap of faith. It truly is. And there's really no other way around it. To follow the teachings of love, the sacred truths of love that are offered to you through sacred teachings, to follow those sacred teachings, to be aware and to become aware that the only way home is to let go of what you thought you knew about everything. But this is where the fear really asserts itself, screams its resistance. Because to not know, every time you align with not knowing, the ego dies a little bit. It loses its grip every time you recognize that you don't know and that you're willing to choose peace and let God show you the way. To learn to be available for guidance, the guidance of love, is the way to return home. To be guided merely acknowledges, how could I possibly know the way home? I haven't walked this way before. I have no idea how to unravel the lies that I made up in the past of all the different identities. And I have to set everyone free from my mind of blame, to really accept and embrace into my heart all the beloveds that I gave identities to and no longer want to hold them as responsible for my pain and suffering. The willingness to surrender the belief of pain and suffering into the hands of God, to be free, to glimpse at that freedom, first for just a second, and then each time longer as you can stand the light, as you can stand the intensity of the light. Don't be afraid of the light. It's who you are. It's what you are. You're just not familiar with that light. And you're not familiar with anything but your own thoughts and your own interpretations of everything. That has been the hell that you made, but it's also been the idea that you think you know something, and it gives you a certain solace in the pretense that you know. Step by step, every moment is being called to make that choice, to choose between peace or what you have known from the past. But every time you choose what you think you know, by omission, as you choose it, you step back into the past and lose sight of the truth. The disparity of choice is that when you make no choice, you are choosing the ego. When you are not conscious, when you are not present in the moment, and you rely on your habits and your knowing from the past, you are making a choice. You're just not making a conscious choice. And the journey of love is about entering back into consciousness, into awareness of being present here and choosing. At first, it seems like a burden to have to pay attention and choose. Seems to be a lot of work. But there is nothing more sinister and more filled with real work than choosing the past again and again and again and being in a trance of separation. That's where all the pain is. Once you make that connection, that the past beliefs and everything you think you know, every decision that you make on your own, every idea that you have of how others have treated you unfairly, every idea that you have of what things mean and the meaning that you have given to them to make them separate, every single one of those thoughts is a place of pain for you. To make the connection between pain and the meaning that you have given the world is the beginning of healing. To recognize that as you choose peace and as you choose to be guided, asking for guidance of love, you slowly step out of the hell of the past. Not everybody's entire journey looks like hell, but there is enough pain and suffering and disappointments, discouragements, and fear in everyone's past to make it no longer what you want to remember and live as. God is calling you to the truth of your being, which is the innocence and perfection and freedom of being the light of God. The mind that made separation cannot conceptualize what it is to be the light of God. There has to be an acceptance. There has to be a trust and a leap of faith to follow, to accept, and to learn to love. Because there is no love in the past. There are glimpses of love. But when there is resentment, when there is blame, when there is discouragement, when there is sadness, when there is a sense of loss, when there is a sense of being betrayed in the past, all of those do not add up to even an inkling of love. And yet love is all that there is. So when you have lived in the illusion of the past, you have not been available for the reality of love that is present. Love is all that exists. And the surrender of the illusion of the past is essential in order to embrace the truth of love that is the truth of your heart. That is where God resides, in the true mind of God and the heart of God. Surrender the mind that you made. Give it back to God. Give your mind back to God to only be used for love. Invite the divine alchemy of love's healing to transform all the beliefs of the past. Who did you think you know from the past? What identity of what beloved did you believe, and do you maybe still believe that it has authenticity? Or are you willing to forgive all of the concepts that you made of everyone? To want to see and to embrace and to join with each beloved as the light of God. Maybe you thought you had beloveds in your life that one was better than another. One was more proficient than another. One had more talent than another. All of these things have been fabricated in the belief of separation. It isn't true of anybody. Every beloved, every element of life is the total reflection of God. Every being that is alive is a total reflection of God beyond the form that you see them through. Open to that divine light and want to be shown and guided in every moment the truth of love. This is the way, this is the everyday journey. Doesn't matter what your doing in the everyday life. It's the opportunity of learning of love. It's the opportunity of forgiveness of the past. It's the opportunity of letting God guide you in every moment. Always available. Your guides are always available in the name of God to lead you. The willingness to surrender everything that you thought you knew of who you were and who everyone else was in every moment. And accepting deeply in your heart the light, the innocence, the perfection, the grandeur of your being. This is the lifetime of remembering that divine grandeur, and that you have nothing to prove to anyone. You are the light of God. In this moment, the willingness to be present, to surrender the identity of being a body and the belief of death into the hands of God, and be willing to affirm that here in the infinite circle of love we are one. There is only one presence here. It is the life force of God. It has nothing to do with the body identity. The life force of God is your divine spirit. And within this life force of God, we live and move and breathe as one. There is only divine union. There is no separation except in the mind of the ego separation, where everything is seen through differences and lacks and blame from the past. All of that being called to be surrendered, to be healed. The sanctuary is filled with love because love is all that exists. This universe is all love. Only love exists. That's why the mind has to be surrendered, because it is in complete opposition to the truth of love. All private thoughts that you have developed, that you have honed, all ideas that you have honed and developed as a theory of life, all the ways that you have aligned yourself with principles that you've made up in the belief of being right, surrender them all into the hands of God. Open only to the principles of love that God created, refusing to accept personal rules that have been made up, and instead surrendering all those personal rules and opening to the laws of God, the laws of love. Step by step, moment by moment, surrendering and refusing the fear of the past that wants to keep you a prisoner in your own mind. Refusing the fear that shows up and opening to the guidance of love and to affirm peace. Opening to the abundance of love that translates into the abundance within the world. Not the world that you've known in the past, but the world of love, the universe of love. Step by step, accepting that here in the infinite circle of love, we are one. No one has done anything, no one has changed the truth of who you are as the light of God. No one can. Accepting your grandeur and the grandeur of all creation. Equality, divine union, always as one. In this moment, in hearing this hymn and in allowing this hymn to be held in your heart so deeply, it can transform your intention. It can transform your recognition of your purpose, of why you incarnated into a body. You incarnated into a body because you believed you were separate, and now you're going to follow the guidance of love back to the truth. This is the way home, the way of love. Rainha da Floresta is the queen of the forest, the divine mother, that is the vibration of all life, including this planet and all planets and all stars and all constellations and all of the universe. The divine feminine that vibrates through the universe with the divine masculine, all in perfection of love. Surrendering the roles that you gave to those beloveds called mother and father, and returning them to the divine mother and father, where they can truly exist as the light of God. No longer willing to hold them hostage in the name of mother and father, open to the divine mother and father to learn of your true nature, of your true worth. Rainha da Floresta, I will follow where you lead. I am going where you lead me, I will go. Rainha da Floresta, I am going where you lead. I will follow, where you lead me, I will go. I am going to my mother to be healed. She takes me in her arms, and to her I must go. Rainha da Floresta, I am going where you lead. I am going where you lead me, I will go. Rainha da Floresta, I love you so. I will go on with my mother, where she leads me I must go. I am going to my father to be healed. I am going to the truth and to be real. Oh, my mother, I am coming to you, Father, let me be. I am coming to my mother, in my mother, let me be. I am going to be healed in the heart of love. I am going into love. Rainha da Floresta is calling us home. Come, my brothers, come, my sisters, come with me, let's go. Come, my brothers, come, my sisters, come with me, let's go. This is the calling of all the beloveds from the past that you gave separate identities to. Now the willingness to see them only as the beloved light of God, and let them join with you, calling them into your heart in complete forgiveness of every identity that you gave to them and of every story that you placed them in and held them hostage as less and culpable and to blame, now being released in the true forgiveness of love, that they've done nothing and that you were mistaken by giving them a false identity and giving yourself a false identity through their identity, being set free. The willingness to follow is the essential element of love. The power of God is constant. The power of God is constantly illuminating for whoever is willing to receive the illumination. Right now, it's the choice of your heart. Right now, it's the choice of love. And the willingness to allow the vibration of love to lead you instead of the mind of separation that you're used to following. The dawn has arrived resplendently. The dawn has arrived of the new day. My Father is here, that is where He is, and my mother is here. The dawn has arrived, illuminating resplendently the new day. This is the new day of learning. This is the new day of remembering. My Father and my mother is here with open arms and with her roses of crystal purity. And I'm willing to embrace the way of her love. And the heart became resplendent and bloomed with all that love. And my mother is here, yes, she is. My Father is here in great jubilation, resplendently illuminating. It is dawn and the sun has risen. In the resplendence of the divine light, we remember our divine mother and father, and we return to that truth. The sun has risen, illuminating. Let us all receive the truth of love and the grace of healing. The child has arrived. The innocence of all humanity is being born into innocence itself. This is the way of love. This is the way of arriving, choosing to be transformed, choosing to be awakened by the power and the light of love itself. Amanheceu, resplandeceu, amanheceu, oh novo dia, meu Pai é lá, ela que ela está, minha mãe está, é o seu altar. Amanheceu, iluminou, resplandeceu o novo dia. Minha mãe está lá, de braços abertos e suas rosas, puras e de cristal, resplandeceu o coração de sabor roxo, todo é seu amor. Minha mãe está lá sim, lá está meu Pai, em grande júbilo, no resplandor da divina luz, e arrovada o sol nasceu. Ele é menino, ele é o amor, que agora chega aos corações. In the singing of this hymn and in the receiving of this hymn, This is the hymn of letting your heart burst open, letting yourself be jubilant in the illumination of the power of God, the willingness to have your heart illuminated, and the willingness to accept this new day as the day of transformation, that this is the day's only purpose, that you surrender into the Holy Spirit's hands time itself, so that each day can now be in dedication to remembering the truth of love, and that every moment is in dedication to that purpose, that you have no other purpose but to remember the truth of love, and surrendering each day and its power and its purpose to only open the heart, illuminate the mind, and remember the truth of God, which means to remember the truth of you, not the you that you believe is a separate self, but the divine light that you truly are. The willingness to let God lead your day. I will follow. Divine Mother, I will follow. Show me the way. I am no longer in charge. I know that this is a shock. It's a shock to the ego system because your whole life has been spent on trying to become in charge. Your whole life has been spent in trying to prove to the rest of the world that you know and that your need to be in charge is viable. The belief that there is something to control of your life and that you need to control the lives of others is the complete distortion of the ego mind. There is nothing to control. Thank God there is nothing to control, because everything that is about control is about fear and hatred. It's the belief that you are in danger and that through control you will be safe. There's no truth there at all. The only truth is that you have nothing to defend, that you have nothing to prove, that you can't prove anything because you're the light of God. But you are only the light of God with everything that is alive. To accept that you are the same value as every animal that walks this earth, has the same value as every beloved that's in a body. That every tree has the same value as your own mind. That every being is the being of love and light and is pure and innocent, and it doesn't matter which form it takes. The truth of God is calling you to let go of the meaning that you have given to this world and all of its different forms, and to open to the light and the truth and the brilliance of creation. Only through the light of God can you walk that journey, and you can't walk it alone. You have to walk with a guide that is aware of where the guide is taking you, or else you're just spinning in circles, back and forth between the past and thinking you're going to control the future. But there's no healing there, and there's no truth there. You can't control the future because it's always going to look exactly like your past when you think that you're in control of it. To open to the light is to truly surrender. I don't know. I don't know what anything means. I don't know how to look on anything. I don't know what it's for, and I don't know how to respond. Divine light, show me the way. Show me the truth. I'm willing. In this moment, everything is filled with the divine essence of guidance from every being that has already awoken to the truth of love. Every being that became identified as a master. These beings did not identify themselves as masters. They were identified as a master by those who followed them. Every single teacher recognizes this, that there is no identity needed of a separate self, but only the hand that leads others in truth and in love. There is an abundance of divine beings that want to lead you if you are willing to listen, if you are willing to follow. But it is essential to make that commitment to follow, or else you just keep spinning in the same little circle of your own identity. Removing the shoe from the temple. Once someone asked me, why do saints seek divine annihilation and are often humble and like to spend their free time upon their knees? I replied, it's a simple matter of etiquette. Then they said, what do you mean, Master? Well, I continued, when one goes to the mosque or temple, is it not common to remove what covers your feet? So too does it happen with this whole mind and body, that there is something like a shoe, soul. When one begins to realize upon whom you are really standing, one begins to remove the shoe from the temple. To remove the whole mind and body from the temple in the sense of being that is what you are, giving the mind back to God and realizing that the body is not the truth of who you are. It will fall away. The body will deteriorate and the body will fall away. That is understood by everybody. And yet that is the greatest fear. The fear that you can't hold your body together because you believe that you are that body and your identification depends on it, which is not the truth at all. Not at all. You are the light of God, and no body is the truth of anyone. Why do saints seek divine annihilation? Every beloved who answers the call of returning home seeks divine annihilation. And many of us are blessed to finally be divinely annihilated. So how can we still sit within a body if we've been annihilated? The only thing that actually gets annihilated are all the lies, all of the made up identity that was never reality to begin with. But it is essential to not be afraid of having the ego annihilated. To put your faith and trust in God is to take that leap of faith that you are willing to have the false identity, the ego identity that you've made up with the mind, annihilated. all that disappears is all the lies of separation, the pain, the conflict, the blame, the resistances, the belief in scarcity, the lack of freedom that you have so believed in and put your faith into, the imprisonment of your own kingdom that you've made. Why is it that everybody makes a kingdom of their own? Because they have no other idea of what to do. So every beloved in the belief of separation makes their own identity and their own little kingdom. And within your kingdom are all your beliefs, all your ideas, all your concepts of who you think you are and what you think your world means. But you're not realizing that as you make that kingdom, and we've all made those kingdoms, the world that you made, you may think that your world is in agreement with every other beloved's world that they've made, but that's not true. Because within each beloved's world is a whole set of rules that you made up. All of the beliefs that you have within your world that say, these are the truths. And I will defend this against everybody else's perceptions of truth. To believe that, we were speaking about this a few days ago, the politics. To believe that politics has a right and a wrong, instead of being able to see that every element of politics, if it is not offering the purity of love, it means absolutely nothing. It has no value. It's all been made up in the mind. The same thing goes for the religions of the world. If through the name of religion, whether you call it the name of God or you call it the name of any name, if you use that name to promote hatred, to promote separation, to promote damage and lack, to promote and to affirm that there are those who are needing to be punished and those who are better, all of this is totally fabricated and has nothing to do with the laws of God and the laws of love. Every single element within the world, whether it's politics, religion, culture, languages, it doesn't matter what it is within this world that you look at it. If it is not for the purpose of love, it has absolutely no reality to it. This is how your world will disappear. This is how your ego identity will come into annihilation, because it is a systematic relinquishment of all that you've believed in within the world that says, I am separate and I am without. And I am a body that looks like I'm going to die. None of this is true. To surrender the beliefs of what you think you know about male and female is a big leap of faith. Is there a divine feminine? Absolutely. Is there a divine masculine? Absolutely. Is it the vibration of God? Absolutely. But it has nothing to do with what the world has made of being male or female and the roles that have been taken and produced out of those ideas. The ego mind has made two factions that seem to be separate and seem to be dependent on a body identity. that promotes and assures that there is a difference. But the truth of every beloved is only the truth in union, the holy union of oneness, where you go beyond all concepts of separation to truly, honestly, humbly surrender everything you thought you knew about everything within this world is the way to that divine annihilation. Don't be afraid of the word annihilation. The annihilation is the disappearance of all the lies, of all the pain, of all the hatred, of all the belief of fear and the lack of freedom that holds every beloved in this belief of being separate in this world. Divine annihilation is being set free from the distortions that have been made by the belief of incarnation. To stop looking at anyone as different, as less or more, as good or bad, right or wrong. All of the differences that have been made in this world are all completely fabricated. They have absolutely no reality in the truth of God. What would I think that God would think? This is where your mind is being called to have absolutely no thoughts other than thoughts of God, to think with God, to see only with love, to offer only love. Even when you're not aware of any love within you, you call on the power of God to express love through you, because that is the beginning of transformation. You're not being asked to take your ego mind and learn to love with your ego mind. It's not possible. It is not possible to learn to love or to express love with what you think you already know. That is the arrogance of the ego that thinks it's going to bypass God and come up with its own solution of love, which is never love at all. It's only the belief of getting. Everyone has played the game of love in this world. A false front, a false identity that says, oh yes, I'm very loving, but in actuality is only trying to get. We have all played the game, and the forgiveness is essential in the journey of remembering. To come humbly into honesty of, I manipulated, I fought for getting, to prove my worth. I resented others who seemed to have more. I was terrified of others who had less. This is the honesty of surrender, to surrender all that was made up in the past, and to realize I can't learn to love unless I learn to open to the guidance of love and let the masters of love teach me to love, so that I can return home and rest in truth. Removing the shoe from the temple is a declaration of humility. To enter into the temple of God, which is symbolic, and to make yourself available is to come naked. Does it mean naked that you have to take all your clothes off? No, not necessarily. but to come naked, which means that you're willing to have stripped off of your facade all of the identities that you've put on yourself in order to stay safe and stay as a persona within the world instead of the light. That you're no longer willing, that you're willing to strip off all of the ideas of functioning and personality and everything else that you've made in order to be defended within the world, because that's the only reason that you put it together. You put an identity together in order to try to protect and defend yourself against a world that is unsafe in your mind. It's all about the belief that there are enemies. Everyone believes that there are enemies. And this is honestly what has to be healed so deeply. Why are there locks on the doors? Because the belief is that there are enemies. Why are there battles going on in the world with different factors of the belief that these are the enemies? Because they believe differently and they have a different distorted idea of right and wrong. Everyone's idea of right and wrong is a distortion. Everyone. There is no right or wrong. That's totally fabricated. There is only love and the belief in fear. When you believe in fear, when you believe in hatred, you join and you make the world of hatred be real to you. Who do you believe is living next door to you? Someone to combat with, someone to fight with, someone to guard against. Every thought, am I thinking every thought, is this a thought of God? Is this a thought of love, of harmony, of joy? Or am I so hooked into the past of blaming and having suspicions of others that I want to have suspicions of everybody, and just so that I can be right? Because the high that is believed in of being right is what runs this world. Every beloved believes that their ideas are right. Their way of looking at the world is right. This is all made up. It's all fabricated. There's no truth. There's only love to offer. And to learn to love is to allow the Holy Spirit, to allow the beings of love to teach you the way of love. And every being of love is more than happy to teach of love, more than happy to offer love. There is nothing here but love for every beloved. There's nothing here but the sweet ease of love. There's no fear here. There's no loss here. There's no death here. It's just love. And the calling to humanity to join in this love and to stop playing the game of strategizing how to stay safe in this world. Because that's where all the pain is. The belief that there is something to lose. Every beloved is caught in the belief of blame. Sometimes in that belief, the blame gets tucked kind of in the back pocket. So you're not really fully conscious of blaming, You're not fully dedicated to blaming in an outward way, but the blame is always there, ready to be used for whatever purposes will prove that somebody has done something to you. Because the belief of separation is totally dependent that you be a victim and that everything has been done to you. Why is this so essential to the ego's game? It's so essential to the ego's game because every beloved wants to believe that they are underneath their hatred innocent. Underneath the fear, which is hatred, that they're innocent. So everyone in the world has to be blamed for their identity, for their experience. Blame keeps the sad game going. You can keep blame in your back pocket, ready to pull it out like an identity card when you believe it's necessary. But it's a game that you're playing. It's a game that needs to be recognized for what it is because it keeps the sad game going. It will keep you imprisoned in your own slavery to your own identity. It's very, in the world, it feels actually somewhat delicious to blame because to blame and to judge has a distortion of a sense of power. Your righteousness feeds you in blaming and in being right. Blame feeds the separate self and feeds the righteousness of separation. It feeds that sense of you really do know. And that sense of knowing gives you a sense of, it's a distortion, but it's the ego makes it feel like power. There's a certain power that comes from, it's not real power because it has no value, but it feels like power. It's like having a story to tell about somebody else and you feel powerful because you know something about somebody else and you get to tell everybody what that is. There's a distorted power that comes with that, of feeling like you have power, like you know something that nobody else knows. None of this is true, but that's what it feels like, and that's what blame in its insidiousness, in its poison, it can feel very powerful. And righteousness goes right along with it. To be righteous, that the belief of your blame is accurate because you have the evidence that it's accurate through your own ideas of what you think you know, keeps the sad game going, the sad game of believing that you're separate from God and that you have no life other than this game of blame. The thing with the back pocket is that even as you're learning to walk the spiritual journey and surrender, you can hold on to blame, and it's a compromise because you're playing a game with God where you're surrendering certain things that you're willing to surrender. It's like it's a game of of surrender that isn't fully given. But in your back pocket, you're going to keep blame, and you're going to keep resentment, and you're going to keep righteousness, and you're going to keep being right, and you're going to hold them in your back pocket so that you can draw on them when you want that feeling of being in control and having power. The sad game that keeps being played with that is that you never feel connected. You never feel a fullness in your heart of the realization that God is here within your heart. You're not available to that because blame and self-righteousness and knowing is enticing. And you settle for those elements of the ego, but you don't realize that you're trading. And that's why it's the sad game. Because the sadness, the sorrow of the heart is still there. And there hasn't been a connection made, but here it is. The connection is that you cannot let go of the sorrow that surrounds your heart while you hold on to blame and self-righteousness and knowing and being right. The sorrow stays. It's the trade-off. Because blame keeps the sad game going. And the sad game is this place of sorrow around your heart. The sorrow of not feeling that connection. The sorrow of looking at everyone from the past and seeing them all as separate and to blame and condemned by your own thoughts, by your own decisions. And that holds the heart in sadness because it's not natural. The natural state of love is a heart that is bursting with joy at the realization that there is no separation. The heart that is bursting with joy because all the blame has been let go, has been surrendered into the hands of God, and the invitation for transformation has been expressed as deeply as you possibly can. To recognize the insidiousness of blame and its effects. Even though it's illusion, because you believe it to be viable and real, it becomes real to you. And in the belief that it is real to you, you suffer with it. Not making the connection of where the suffering is coming from. But the suffering is coming from the refusal to let go of blame. The refusal to let go of being righteous. That righteous indignation of being right about what you think you know, about what everybody has done and what everybody seemingly continues to do, because what happens in the world is that when you believe that the past is the problem, and that you believe that the past is where all your pain comes from, rather than it's coming from your own mind and your own belief of the past that you made, what happens is that you keep making the same story again and again and again and again, and everybody disappoints you, and everybody turns against you, and everybody is suspiciously held, and everybody is right on the edge of betraying you. That's how you see the world, because you're holding blame in your back pocket because you're holding self-righteousness in your back pocket, because you keep pulling them out to use them to protect and defend against a self-imagined enemy, which is called the world. The belief that the world is an evil place and that you are the only one who recognizes how innocent you are, but that the world is evil and that the world is the problem, rather than the recognition finally that the place of pain that is being produced constantly is the mind, the ego mind that believes in separation. So when you are removing your shoes to go into the temple, it's the realization that that's just the first step to open to the humility of removing your shoes, but removing your whole identity to go into the temple, to be cleansed, to be reborn, to be stripped in divine annihilation of all of the lies of separation that you made. To recognize that you made separation and all of the ideas that go with it and all of the identities that go with it is not a condemnation. It's where freedom is. It's the relinquishment of the lies, and that blame has no truth. It has absolutely no truth. You cannot use blame for anything or for anyone and be in reality. They cannot coexist. If blame is your God, then the truth of God is not available to you, because blame has your full attention, even if it's in your back pocket. It's held in your back pocket as a safety net that has no reality to it. But when you believe in blame, you believe in separation. And there's no healing possible there until you're ready to truly surrender all the ideas of wrongdoing, of being unfairly treated, of blaming for anything, of believing the past and the roles that you gave to everyone, and all the roles that you're giving to everyone now. It doesn't matter what shape or form they take. You have to let go of the roles that you've given to them so that you can let go of the roles that you've given to yourself, because it's all the same. It's all the pain and the suffering. Why do saints seek divine annihilation and are often humble and like to spend their free time upon their knees? There's nothing more delicious than to be prostrated to God. It's not a place of losing. It's a place of falling into love. It's a place of recognition that the humility of love is the doorway. The humbleness, the humility says, I don't know anything. I don't know anything in this world, and everything that I thought I knew from the past, I have to let it disappear. That's the annihilation, when all the knowing of the past disappears, and you open to this present moment, which is all love. Remembering happens in an instant. Opening to that divine instance. The grandeur of your being. Not the grandiosity. The grandiosity is of the ego that says, I'm more than everyone else. I have to prove that I'm more, better. And that relationship with the grandiosity says, I have to prove, so I have to have others that I can blame in order to be better than them. This is how the ego plays its game. But the grandeur, which is the truth of you, which has no battle, nothing to prove, that grandeur is completely without illusions. No illusions exist in the recognition of your divine grandeur. And to see the grandeur in every beloved is to see the truth of God. And there are no illusions that hide that divine truth. That's your freedom. That's the way home. Stepping out of blame and pride, of ownership of any kind, and to come empty onto God. And to want the heart to be completely healed, free of sorrow, free of sadness, free of any defense, because nothing is needed. There is not a moment in which the voice of God fails to direct your thoughts if you choose. There's not a moment that direction can't be received. I will follow. I will follow where you lead. There is not a moment that God is not whispering in the quiet voice of love to lead you in the direction that's most helpful, to give you thoughts of love, to fill your mind with the thoughts of peace and harmony, and to offer that peace and harmony to each beloved, to refuse to battle anymore in any way, not to allow the mind its insidiousness of trying to make a case of wrongdoing against anyone, but to hear the call for love from every beloved and to answer that call, to let your heart sing in happiness for the gift of answering that call for love. And all the pain and all the sorrow and all of the longing falls away and the heart opens. The voice of God will not fail to direct your thoughts, your actions, and where you walk in this world, if you allow the voice of love to lead you. This is the way of love. The ego is always alert, looking for perceived threats. Let your heart sing, illuminated the calling of love, the emancipation of your heart is to recognize that the dawn has arrived. This is a new day. This is a new moment. This is the moment of love. And to honestly surrender all of the ideas of blame, and that every time the mind wants to have something to blame or something to be irritated by, which is the same thing, refuse it and give it to God and affirm love. Affirm, no, I have to choose love. I have to choose love because it's the only thing that's real. It's the only thing that exists. I say yes. I choose love. And I will remove my shoes from the temple and gladly be annihilated in the truth of love. One heart. Truly, only one heart. How can there be anybody to blame when there's only one heart?